are listening to the Human Care Podcast, part of the Invisible, Not Broken podcast network. I'm your host, Eva Minkoff. This podcast features conversations with health entrepreneurs, care professionals, patient advocates, and industry changemakers. What do they all have in common? The mission to humanize healthcare. In every episode, we offer unique stories paired with education, actionable tips, tricks, and takeaways, all to help you better navigate healthcare and transform it into human care. Today, my guest is Allyn Amerongen. Allyn is a wellness coach specializing in empowering women with chronic illnesses to overcome obstacles and to step into their life calling. Her signature techniques focus on strengthening mindset and building healthful practices, allowing for women to live life on their terms. Additionally, Allyn is the founder of Doing It Despite, a community for women with chronic illnesses focused on pursuing a full and joyful life despite life's challenges. Professionally, Allyn has 15 plus years in the chronic pain and illness field, including training from the Mayo Clinic. Like many guests on this show, Allyn's passion for helping others stems from her own battle with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and chronic migraines, which she has been experiencing since age 11. Allyn has since committed herself to a life of helping others through coaching, motivational speaking, advocacy, and mentorship. Allyn, thank you so much for coming on the Human Care Podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. I gotta say, you and I have a lot of things in common right off the bat. I too have fibromyalgia, and I don't know exactly when my pain began, but I did see my first specialist at 11 or 12 years old. So
been in it for the long haul also.
Yep. Yes, it has been. Well, I've started this new habit of jumping right in and getting super vulnerable, super real, super fast. So let's start with, what do you value most in life?
What I've come to value most in life is grace and transparency, I believe most. I used to be pretty black and white before my illness, which, you know, that sounds crazy to say that at such a young age I was pretty black and white, but I've always been type A, perfectionist, been pretty hard on myself and had high standards, and I think I held people to those standards as well. But throughout going through chronic illness and you know, the good days and bad days, I've had to learn to have grace and empathy, not only for myself, but also for other people. And so that has been a huge lesson, and something that I have just really learned to value in all areas of my life. And then also just transparency. I think that really provides space for people to learn from each other and grow, and, you know, it fosters a good relationship when you can just really strip down the walls and the barriers and all the crap that we put up to shield ourselves from other people, and just really get to know people. So those are the two things I value the most.
Well said. Strip it down. And what makes you feel good?
Oh, a lot of things make me feel good. I just like to relax for the most part. I love to be with family. I love to be with friends. I love clean sheets, Italian food, Mexican food. I love, you know, just a good conversation where I can help people and just, like I said, break down those walls and barriers. And I think it's so fulfilling on both ends when you can just have a real and honest conversation with someone. And it doesn't even have to be about chronic illness, but just about life and what you're feeling, what you're going through, good, bad, ugly. I think that I feel really good and fulfilled when I can actually connect with someone like that.
And what makes you feel bad? to your core?
Yeah. There's a laundry list of things that make me feel bad. Obviously, I think I can be pretty hard on myself in a lot of ways, but I feel a lot of shame and guilt when I'm not able to show up fully, whether it's for a commitment that I've made or just for people in my life. If I'm not feeling well and I don't have the capacity to, give my full mental or physical energy to people, that, makes me feel bad. Because like I said, I feel good when I can be there and talk to people and do all that stuff. So when I'm not able to fully be there, then that doesn't make me feel too good usually.
And to counteract that, what makes you feel right? And when I say right, it doesn't mean it's necessarily that it feels good. It just feels that this is what you should be doing or thinking or feeling.
Yeah. Being vulnerable, I think, makes me feel right. And I've had to learn that for sure. Coming from a place of being type A perfectionist, I think, and living in a society where you're kind of bred that way and fostered that way, you're not necessarily taught to show failure or show weakness or vulnerability. But in going through all of this, I think that I've really found that is a gift and kind of a sweet spot for me. And that's a gift that I feel like I have. And when I can use that, that's when I feel most right. When I can give that gift to people and show them that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to be messy, it's okay to be, yourself, and whatever that looks like day to day. It can change day to day, and it always does. But just showing up in that vulnerable nature usually makes me feels right to me.
I'm right there with you. It's definitely not a comfortable place to be, but I think at the same time, I never feel better than after I've been vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an
And what
awkward place sometimes.
yeah, it can definitely be awkward. But every awkward experience like that, I feel is also a growth opportunity. So hey, there's some positivity there. And what makes you feel anger?
I I don't usually get very angry, but I would say whenever someone, makes others feel small or unseen or unheard, I think something that's really heavy and big on my heart is just the fact that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, wherever you're at in life, like that you matter as a person, whether you're doing something super small or something super big, or, if you've achieved your goals or you haven't, or if you're in bed all day or you're not. I think like you matter so much as a person. And so whenever I see people, put someone down or make someone feel bad or make someone, compare themselves or second guess themselves, that makes me get fired up for sure.
Yeah, when someone's not treating someone else as human as
Yes,
they
exactly.
would
Yep.
want to be, right? Yeah. And what makes you feel joy? Joy.
I know, just being where my feet are, I think, you
Mm.
know, trying to really focus on that has been quite the journey. And I think I talk about it a lot with clients, the difference in happiness and joy, and the fact that happiness is usually dependent on something, but joy is kind of this momentary thing that can totally pass you by if you aren't paying attention. And so I think, the joy for me is just really trying to be present wherever I am, whether it's laying in bed watching Netflix, looking out my window and being like, dang, that's really beautiful. Like, it looks so nice out there. Or if I'm at the grocery store and I see a kid running and I'm like, oh, he's so freaking cute. Like, little bits of joy is just like wherever you are, holding on to that, I think, and trying to pay attention to that as much as possible.
Oh, we're just getting started and you're giving lots of gold nuggets.
Oh, good.
I'm not surprised. It makes sense that you would be.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much. So now I'd like to take a step back and dig into your past a little bit, to the extent to which you would like to talk about it, like to share with us about what's made you who you are today.
Such a loaded question.
That is
Yes.
loaded. It is a loaded question, and I always feel a little guilty starting off with something like that. But I also follow by saying, in whatever way that you want to talk about it. You could just say like a
For sure.
sentence. You can give me, a whole lengthy monologue. Whatever you want to share with our.
No, I will, sum it up shortly as best I can for you. And I like to consider myself an open book, as best as I can word it. So yeah, like we mentioned earlier, I had a totally normal childhood, amazing childhood, sports, all that fun stuff. When I was 11, my back started hurting, and that was the very first thing. I didn't even know what pain was really. Like, hey, my back kind of hurts. Earlier, and from there, it totally normal morphed, spiraled into changing the whole trajectory of my life. From that point on, I was in doctor's offices, specialists, PT, massage, acupuncture, chiro, all these things, after school, every day, trying to figure it out, because every single test would come back negative. It wouldn't show anything. Looking at me, I mean, I was in offices from age 11 on, so I was too young to have anything, right? I say that with quotes. I was too young to have anything wrong with me. Genetically, like nothing ran in my family. It wasn't making sense. And so I was going through all of this at a time when I should have been out, playing soccer, going to the movies, doing all these things. So it's not that I didn't still do that at times, but my childhood, I would say, looked pretty drastically different than a lot of other kids my age. But my family was remarkable, super supportive, and I had always had a pretty good mindset, that I'm gonna go to college, I'm still gonna do the things that I want to do and go where I want to go regardless of this. And so it was always just kind of a management phase. At age 15, I had, my first set of back injections, and then I was getting those every year, and we were just trying anything. And the goal was always to get me to college. They're like, we think you're going to grow out of it. We need to get you to college. And I felt pretty good going into college. I went out of state because I always wanted to get out of state. I love Oregon girl, but wanted to go somewhere new. And I went, and within the first week, like the first day pretty much, I tanked very hardcore. When I say tanked, I went into full-blown panic attacks, anxiety, depression, all these things that I had never experienced before. And it was, at first I was like, oh, this is just me being away from home, but it went on and on and on. And what we came to find was it was a reaction of the drugs I was on, coupled with the change in my schedule, my routine. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating the same, all these things. Stress was up. And so that was definitely the darkest phase, where I went through like totally not wanting to continue living that way. I know everyone with chronic illness, I think at one point or another reaches that time where you're like, I cannot go on living this way. And for me, that was just about every single day there. I'm super high functioning, so I was getting up, I was going to class, but I would barely make it through class without breaking down crying, and then I would make it to my car and have like a panic attack. So that went on for my first semester, and decided I needed to get out of there. So I moved closer to home, came back to my doctor's, and got things back on track, changed colleges, and ended up, being closer to home, having good doctor system, all of that stuff, and things were much better. And, I think that really changed the trajectory of things. From that point on, I was still trying to manage, figure things out, I went through a phase of being misdiagnosed for about 2 years. I went through IV treatment, self-injectables, all of that stuff for a few years after college, and then come to find out that that diagnosis was not correct. And then I ended up pursuing treatment myself at the Mayo Clinic. I went against medical advisement and pursued that. So I'm kind of going fast to wrap it all up because it's super long, but I think the whole basis of the story is that I had to hit rock bottom in order to come back out of it and to recognize my voice and to recognize what I wanted out of my life and to recognize that my healthcare journey was my own and that I was capable of making my own decisions and taking the driver's seat. And that looked like picking my doctors, picking my healthcare team, picking where I went, when I went. If I didn't like a doctor, I wasn't going to them. That's not to say like I didn't listen to their opinions, but I listened to my gut more than their opinions a lot of times. And that definitely led me to where I am today, which is feeling pretty good. I'm managing. I have, like I said, the fibro diagnosis. I feel just a lot more balanced as a human. It's like night and day than I was years ago. So it has been a long haul for sure, but it's been this weird gift that, you know, it teaches you who you are in every nitty gritty way possible, I think.
Yeah, chronic illness or just hitting rock bottom in general, because we all hit rock bottom in some way, shape, or form. I don't think there's a better teacher than that.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, it's actually yourself is the teacher. The experience is the catalyst, but you end up being your teacher, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. I think you can have a lot of the same experiences with chronic illness, but slowly your reactions to them may change over time. Once you kind of, you're going to learn from each one. You're going to take something different from each one, and you're going to slowly compile your toolkit and your belief system and that confidence in yourself and all of that. And, really, like you said, learn from it and take away those big lessons at the end of the day.
So what about your relationships along this journey, like in the home, at school, doctors, whatever one you want to jump into? All those
Yeah, where to start? I'll start with family. Family has been amazing all the way around. They have gone with me anywhere and everywhere I've ever wanted to go, medically wise. So they have been wonderful. Friends, you learn who your people are without a doubt. And I think that is I don't know how to properly word it. It's kind of like one of those gifts you don't really want to receive, but it turns out to be a good one, kind of. Looking back, I am like, oh, thank God I figured that out quickly. Like having chronic illness allowed for me to weed out a lot of people in my life quicker, I think, than I would have normally. And that's not to say they aren't great people or like, that there's anything wrong with them, but I think that you learn your kind of non-negotiables in relationships pretty quickly, and you learn what you need from people in order to feel loved, supported, respected, all of that. And if you aren't receiving that, it can be really physically and mentally draining on you, and that's the exact last thing you need when you have an illness. So friendships have definitely, been weeded down a little bit, but they're spectacular. The ones who have been with me, are wonderful friendships who have come in middle of the road. And, people who do not have an illness, it's extremely hard. You can never explain to someone, I don't think, in words what it's like. And I always tell clients and even friends, like, I don't expect you to understand, but I just expect you to respect it. Like, respect if I can't make, the concert we're going to go to, or if I can't make dinner plans or coffee, or I don't expect you to know what it feels like, you know, to be like bedridden, but just don't give me crap for feeling like this. So yeah, friendships have taken a while, but they're amazing. And then relationships, I have not been in many because it's kind of a two-way thing, I think, or a two-sided thing. Part of it is for so long, I think you're so invested in taking care of yourself. I was so focused on finding a diagnosis, finding anything to provide me relief. I was just so engulfed in living this life and, you know, my appointments after school, after work, and doing all these things, that didn't really allow me the time or the mental capacity to even feel like I had energy to put towards someone else. And then on the flip side, now that I do feel good, I am extremely protective, both in relationships, romantically, and also friendships, family, whatever it may be, about who I let into my circle in my life, because I protect my mindset at basically all costs because I've worked so hard to get here. So that's just, you know, I think for so long you're fighting for this healthy lifestyle and this well-being, and then you get here and it's like, well, at what point are you willing to let people in, and at what point or what costs are you willing to let people in? And so I'm kind of in that area right now where I would love to be in a relationship and share my life with someone, but it definitely needs to be the right person and the right fit, just because I feel so protective over how hard I've worked and how far I've come.
Yeah, and I think in most romantic relationships there is some form of that, but maybe, you know, different sizes or like magnitude of significance. But for sure, you've paid your dues, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to have to do them again. The fact that you have cultivated such a mindset really is a superpower, but it is one that never really stops needing to be protected, right? Like
Right.
you're always working on it.
Yeah.
So I definitely get that. But I know that you will find what you are destined to find. I'm not really into talking about destiny, but sure, let's say that
I
here.
think I will. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yes,
know.
because clearly relationships are of utmost importance to you. And I say that not even knowing you very well, because your relationship to yourself is so important. And if you have a good relationship with yourself, like a truly good relationship with yourself, it allows you to connect with others so much better on so much of a deeper level and an impactful level. I mean, it definitely is a continuous journey, continuous battle. I know that that's something I take pride in myself, is I've been working so hard on my mindset for years. But actually, like, really little side note is that my sister and I got in a big fight a couple years ago because she knew that I had done all this sort of self-reflection, and her perception of that was that at that point I now thought I was holier than thou, and like I had done all the growing I needed to do. And when she admitted that that's how she thought I saw myself, I was like, oh no. Oh no, that's not the case at all. I think
Right.
that I've done some really good work and I'm proud of myself, but it is absolutely continuous.
For sure. It's,
And
yeah, it's never ending.
I'm uber flawed and I make mistakes all the time. But yeah, I'm going to like pat myself on the back for making a serious effort and progress.
Yeah. I think you almost kind of shift from, you know, like you shift to where what you've been through, like almost as a little bit of like a badge of honor, and not in the sense that like, look what I've been through, but almost like, holy crap, if I can go through that, then I can go through anything. And I'm human. I know that I'm going to fall down a million freaking more times, but like, you know that if you've been through hell and back, like you can do it again. Maybe you can do it a little bit quicker, or you can get out of there a little bit, you know, less scarred this time or something like that. So yeah, I think that there is that kind of misconception that in working on yourself and in going through all this stuff that like, oh, I'm fixed and I'm better than you and, you know, all this stuff. But it's like, no, it just means that like you recognize how far you've come and like you can really see the value and worth in yourself and you can carry that forward and apply it to whatever other challenges come your way.
That conversation I had with my sister, I believe, led to us being as close as we are today. I don't think she would deny that, although I don't know if she's reflected on it. And it actually goes back to what you said earlier about feeling right and that being through vulnerability. And yeah, it definitely wasn't comfortable to tell my sister that I feel, you know, I listed a number of very negative things about myself, especially I'm like the older sister, whatever. But it felt really right. And it resonated with her. She's like, oh, wow, we both, because her and I get along well, but we're very, very different people. And so, but that was our even playing field, or that was what we had in common, was like, wow, we both recognize that we have flaws and are not perfect. And we want to be open about that with each other. And so, yeah, I think that was like the start of a new chapter in our relationship. So vulnerability.
Yeah, definitely.
Good thing. It's a good thing.
Totally.
And so what about doctors? Again, always a fun topic. You know, some of us have loving relationships with doctors. Some of us have hateful ones. Some of us have a bit of both. I happen to, you know, be well, I'm not a doctor, but I say a member of both teams, or I play for both teams. I don't know what, I'm really bad with expressions. But yeah, would you like to talk about any of the good, the bad, and the ugly?
For sure. Yeah. I think, you know, I have doctors in my family, love them. I'm the same way. If I hadn't have gone through this journey, I think I would have had a very different idea. But, you know, I think there's always going to be something better. There's always going to be something worse. There's always good and bad in whatever you're looking at. And so, yeah, there has been, and I think also, I'm going to just side note that if you're going through any form of journey for a prolonged period of time, you're bound to see both ends of the spectrum. And if you have not, I would love to hear about your journey, because that is fascinating. But I for sure think that if you're around, like, as long as you or I have been dealing with something like this, for sure you're going to have some crappy doctors, and you know, it's not even that I don't want to say that they're crappy, but it's people that maybe you don't feel seen or you don't feel heard. And for myself, starting my journey so young, it was twofold. I was either given amazing care because look how cute, she's so young, we have to help her, you know, we're gonna give her freaking everything. I get like everyone on the floor helping me. Or I would go in and they're like looking at their nurse, why is this girl in my office? She's like 13 years old. I don't know why. This is a waste of my time to see her. You know, and then as you get older, it becomes the whole thing. And, you know, everyone with a chronic illness goes through it, of your tests are coming, or at least for a lot of us, you know, tests come back negative, or going through that whole period where you really need to be advocating for yourself. In some instances, if you maybe don't feel seen or heard, or, you know, you're kind of at your end of the road with some doctors, I think that can be super difficult. I feel like I had a really great doctor for a long, long time growing up, and then it kind of became where I needed more, or like things were escalating and I needed further care. And around that time is when I started to kind of see that shift in doctors who maybe didn't believe me because of my age, or I wasn't showing symptoms, or I wasn't showing the right signs. And I think if you don't really fit into the boxes, or the, you know, the symptom list or all that stuff, sometimes it can be hard for certain doctors to open their eyes and ears and fully see you as, you know, a patient who really does have something wrong. And so I know, you know, that's healthcare. I think healthcare is awesome in some regards in terms of you come in with a broken arm and yeah, we can put your arm in a cast, we can take an x-ray, see it's broken, put it in a cast, and in however many weeks you're good to go. But when you have a chronic illness and it's invisible and it's super ambiguous and everyone has a different opinion on it, there's no way that you're not going to run into people with different opinions, different approaches, who will definitely treat you differently. And so, yeah, I have had very interesting experiences for sure that I could go all day on, but I think what I've learned most is listening to my gut, advocating for myself. And my grandfather was a neurosurgeon, and my dad, anytime I was sick, like very, very sick, he would come into my room and he would say, like, it would tear my parents apart when I was like really flaring, and he would come in and say, I'm so sorry, we're going to figure this out. But, you know, like, as my dad would always say, they're just practicing medicine. Like, they're just practicing, they're doing the best they can do with what they have. They're practicing, you know, and trying to figure it out as best they can. And so that was always kind of something I kept in the back of my mind when I would go and see doctors, is that they're humans too, right? Like, they get dressed just like we do. They go home to their families just like we do, the whole thing. And so that really kind of humanizes it a little bit for me, in recognizing part of the reason why you may see such a flux in doctors, and in particular, yeah, the chronic illness world. But I just think you're bound to see people who you don't agree with, who don't really see you, but give them grace, give yourself grace, and, you know, listen to your gut, advocate for yourself as best you can, and don't feel bad about going and seeing someone else, because there's millions of doctors practicing medicine, and if someone can't help you, you're going to find someone else who can, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relationship just like, I mean, I like to say that it's a relationship just like any other. At the end of the day, you aren't going to jive well with all humans on this earth. Not everyone's going to understand you or be open to you in the way that you are. And in this context, that's also how your body expresses itself, you could say. So advocating for yourself, one way in which to do that is absolutely deciding whether or not a doctor is right for you. And people have different limitations, but if someone's helping you with your health, maybe not just helping you with your health, but maybe you're putting your life, your health in their hands. It's a pretty important relationship that you're going to want to make sure is good. Just like I really hope people actually take the time and effort to pick the person they marry. I'm not talking long time. I'm just talking, sorry. I realize that could be a little confusing out of context. I don't have any judgment in how long people take, if it's 3 dates or, 3 years or whatever, but the whatever is appropriate to feel like you've had a good understanding of what you want and what they want, and vice versa. And that's true in romantic relationships, friendships, and doctor relationships. And I'd say family relationships, but you kind of know them since birth and you're stuck with them. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's just hard. I think if you're very new into the medical world or going to the doctor, you're just like, oh, I'm going to go to this one doctor and this is the doctor, like, the doctor. But you don't ever stop to realize that the world is full of doctors, and sure, it takes 10 extra steps and a whole lot of extra effort, but if that person is not your person, if they don't gel with you with something as intimate, personal, important as your health, then by all means look elsewhere. And I know it feels weird, like when I went against medical advice and went off medication, stopped treatment, and I was like, I'm going to Mayo Clinic. Like, I need a big freaking answer because it's been long enough. I'm too sick. And I went from Oregon to Jacksonville, Florida. I went all the way across the country, and it felt so weird but I had been up and down the West Coast. I'd been to everyone possible in my town, and at some point, you need to realize that you're worth it. Like, your health is worth it. Your family's worth it. You don't need to be spending money on someone who, like, isn't going to help you or can't help you or doesn't have the capacity to. You don't need to be throwing money at a system that you feel like obligated to. I think that we kind of mindlessly enter into the medical system sometimes and don't really think about it, you know, as a thing that we have the power to drive. And so that is something that I would say to people. It really gets me fired up. I could talk on and on about it, but just like empowering people to be the drivers of their own healthcare, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's like a big mantra in everything you do, right?
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I want people to believe in themselves enough to pursue, you know, their best healthcare, their best life, relationships, career, all that stuff. And I know it can be hard and scary, and I didn't know the first freaking thing about getting into Mayo Clinic. I had no idea, but like, you need to try and believe in yourself and believe that you're worthy of a diagnosis, of finding something out, and all of this stuff, even if it may not feel like it after years and years and people not, you know, seeing you or hearing you or giving you answers.
Believing you're worth it.
Yeah.
That's I think you mentioned is I asked you if you had anything that you really wanted to get out there. If there's like one very concise message, you said you're worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is such a loaded statement, but a really good one to keep repeating to yourself.
In every capacity of your life. I just think we can sell ourselves short in every single area. I don't care what it is, and especially when you have a chronic illness, it's compounded even more. But just to remind yourself that as many times a day as possible, when you feel like you can't do it, you can't get up, you can't keep going, or, you know, I don't care as big or as small as it is, whatever it is, that you're worth it, for sure. Yeah, it is loaded, and it's not very profound, and you've probably seen it a million times on a journal, but that's my profound statement.
Well, I mean, I think it is, it is profound. And there's a reason why we hear these messages over and over, because I think they take a really long time to sink in. Sometimes decades, decades, I think, for a lot of people. And I worry that sometimes we hear them enough to the point where we become numb to them. But I'm hoping it's moments like this when we're talking about a fun little positive quote thing that you see, on plaques and whatnot. We're talking about it in the context of our lives, with all the pain that goes with it. And my goal with this podcast is to actually light up some of these seemingly cliche terms and be like, hey, there's truth to these things. And we're not saying it's easy, but we're saying that it's possible and it's worth looking into. I think if I had to tag on my mantra to yours, it would be there's possibility, or it's possible. And I actually love throwing this at my friends, even my husband, when they say like, I can't, and like the word can't, if you just put can't in like anywhere. And either I think this, or I will directly tell them that's not true. It's totally possible. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying it, the quote unquote it, whatever it is at the time, is possible. I feel that there are very few things that are impossible. And when I say impossible, I mean like whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. The specifics of it, sure, they might be impossible sometimes, something out of your control, but like getting to wherever you want to go, maybe it's a state of being or feeling or general accomplishment. I have yet to find in my life any instance where something is not possible. And believe me, I need to remind myself that all the time. And actually, I've built up such a, I guess I've done this to my friends enough where they'll do it back to me.
Oh, yeah.
I've had this happen a few times recently. In fact, where I've been talking about not being able to travel once I have kids. I do not have kids yet, but I plan to in the next year or two. You know, we'll see what happens. And I always talk about how I won't get to travel when I have kids. And then one of my friends, she basically told me to shut up and said, "What are you talking about? You're always telling me to live in this mindset of possibility. And you're telling me an avid traveler won't find a way to travel when you have children, even with chronic pain." And I was like, oh God, you're right. I'm not taking my own advice. It is absolutely possible. I don't know how. I know that it's likely to be difficult, but it is not impossible. That's for sure.
I love that. The possible. I love that. I think we forget that for sure. It does go hand in hand with the you're worth it, and we definitely forget that, but I do agree that just about everything is possible for sure.
Yeah, I see them as going together, even though they seem maybe a little separate depending on how you're looking at it, because my first negative thought, if I'm going to be in a negative mindset, when I think about you're worth it, like someone says you're worth it, I'm like, I'm not worth it. You know, I've got all these things wrong with me and all these things suck. But then if I also if I try on the idea of things being possible, it starts to flip all those negativities on their head. And then value and self-worth becomes a bit easier to comprehend and really take on. So we just got real esoteric there, but that's what I like to do. Actually, I would love to hop into the conversation of doing it despite.
Yes.
Please tell us all about that.
Yes.
Great name, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think once I hit rock bottom and kind of bounced back, I definitely came to find that this is something that was really heavy on my heart, and that I felt really inspired and motivated to help other people with, so that way they didn't have to go as deep, dark, and twisty as I did. And I still think that everyone with chronic illness, for the most part, is gonna, I know you're gonna struggle, and I know that you're gonna have to work through a lot of these things, but if I can help people take off some of that shame and guilt and confusion, questioning, all of that stuff, then I would love to do that and help people in that way. So I, became totally engulfed in this chronic illness world, personal development world, and I came up with doing it despite, and it has always kind of been this mindset for me of continuing to approach each day and do what I want to do, whether that is lay on the couch with my dog and a cup of tea, or go out on a hike, or go travel. I'm an avid traveler too. Whatever it may be, continuing to do the things in life that I want to do and not let the mindset of I'm sick and I hurt get in the way of that. So, doing it despite kind of became a little bit of a badge of honor and kind of a way of life, if you will, of just keeping pushing and striving for more, and the whole, believing that it's possible, believing that you're worth more, believing in yourself enough to try, and just not letting an illness, a diagnosis, a undiagnosis, any of that stuff stop you from living the life that you want and that you envision? Because I know that all those things are reasons to stop, and they make it 10 times harder. But I also know that there's a big freaking life and world out there that is worthy of being lived, and chronic illness people are freaking badass, and I want them to go and live a joyful, amazing life that they want to live. So that is doing it despite in a nutshell. It's been just a labor of love for sure, but it has been super fun to grow and connect with everyone.
Labor of love is a really good sticker to put on just doing it despite in general. I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of pain went into that one, but yeah.
Curious, where do you think doing it despite, and I don't mean your business, I mean like the literal doing it despite is actually a negative? Like, where do you think people might, let's say, push out of their comfort zone in a negative way? Like maybe it's a falsehood of capability or something like that. I don't know if you've thought about it that way, but
I would love to touch on this in a few ways. First is I actually, I am aware that to some people in the disabled community, the despite is like a no-no word. They don't enjoy that word. And the reason being, my understanding is that insinuates that, you know, they're living their life a different way with their disability, or to insinuate that like they should be living a different way, or I'm totally not wording this right, but it means like it's not very what am I even trying to say? I'm totally having a brain fog moment. I'm so sorry. Anyways.
That's all good. That's my life in a nutshell.
Yeah. So I'm aware that it can mean like, to them, it's just, if they are disabled, they're living their life, and it's not a despite. Like, it's just you're living your life, right? It's not despite being disabled, you're living your life. And so I totally understand that and grasp that in every way. And to me, when I think of despite, that form of thinking really makes sense to me. I was coming from it, you know, coming to it from the perspective of empowerment and overcoming even like the mental side effect of not feeling well, not necessarily always the physical side effect of whatever your illness may be, especially because this is geared more towards people with chronic illness. So that is where I was coming from with it. Also, I understand that I don't think that people should go out and run, you know, a 10K and hike Mount Kilimanjaro and slap doing it despite at the very top. I, in no way, shape, or form, am advocating that you know, go balls to the wall and burn yourself out into like a 2-month flare. If you know me, if you work with me in coaching, I preach moderation, you know, till I'm blue in the freaking face. So I'm always like, don't overdo it, moderate. If you want to do this, I say like, you want to walk for 20 minutes? I say, take it back to 10 or 15. Like, I don't ever want people to think doing it despite means like go crazy, go ham with your body at all. So
it's not YOLO or like
no. No, I want people to have fun, but like, you know, keep your body good.
Yeah, because I absolutely love empowering messages like doing it despite. It's one I haven't thought of before, so I'm glad that you've branded that. But yeah, at the same time, I like to play devil's advocate, and I was thinking like, how could that be misconstrued?
Yeah, no, it can totally.
Will do.
Yeah, it can totally be misconstrued, absolutely. And if you know me, and my heart is 100% pure in anything I work on, and especially when it comes to chronic illness, or even health in general, life in general, I never want to make anyone feel, obviously, that angers me. Like, I don't want to make people feel less than or bad about themselves, compare, anything like that. So I'm glad that we were able to address that for sure.
Nice. Well, I really wanted to touch upon something that you and I see eye to eye on. You know, we didn't speak about this much, but it was like, yes, we both really get this. A very simple thought, yet some people, most people, I think, don't seem to get it, is that I'm going to use my my term here, which is everybody's got their own shit, right? And it's something that you said is a big part of a big lesson in your coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how you phrase it too. I always say, I think throughout growing up and doing all this, I've definitely pulled, like, there's been a few things that each of my parents have always said to me. And, my dad said the practicing medicine thing. My mom has always said, everyone has something. And the chronic illness thing is your something. And what she means by that is just that everyone you come across in life has something that freaking sucks and that they're working through. 99% of the time, you probably don't see it or hear about it. A lot of times, it can be someone's family is going through a divorce, or they have a learning disability, or something, is going on with their kids, or something career-wise, or all these things, and, especially amplified with COVID. But just living with that mentality that everyone has something, just because they don't have a cast and crutches does not mean that people do not have shit going on in their life that's very real to them, very impactful to them, and that, causes them to react and act a certain way in their life. And just carrying that little nugget with you and living your life with that knowledge and, carrying it with you when you interact with people, I think is important.
Yeah. And I didn't comment on it before, but what your dad said in regard to doctors, I couldn't agree more. He basically took the words out of my mouth, that doctors are human and they get up and go get ready in the morning and they have the hardships just like any other human in their life. So we could talk about this in regards to doctors, but just in general, I find it as a humbling exercise, actually a presence exercise, almost like a mindfulness exercise, you could say, is I'll look at people randomly on the street, and well, there aren't as many people on the street these days, but during COVID, yes. And I'll just paint a picture of their life. Like, think about, are they married? Did they have kids? Who have they lost in their life? Like, what struggles have they gone through? And I make up this whole story because every person has a whole world that they're in. Just like we have a whole world, which is really overwhelming if you think about it, with all the people on this planet, and each of them have a huge world like we do. And within that world is pain. We have pain in some ways from the moment we're born. That sounds really negative, but it's just kind of true. We all have pain, both physical and emotional. And actually, even thinking about that conversation with my sister, like, I talked to her about pain. At the time I was talking to her about pain in self-love, or like, I guess, like shame and other negative things I felt about myself. And that was my shit at the time that I was relaying to her. And it's so important to recognize that within ourselves, while simultaneously recognizing it in others. And I think that's what connects us all. Or that's one of the many things that can connect us, is knowing that we're all in pain. That sounds negative, but I find it to ultimately be a major positive in human connection.
No, it just humanizes everyone. I mean, you're not looking around and seeing everyone as these little like perfect tiny squares, Instagram with all these likes, and like you're not looking at people like this and being, you know, like, oh, look at our perfect life. But when you can actually like use that, look at someone and say, I may not know what it is, I may not ever know what it is, but I know that it's something, and I know that it's something impactful for you, that it totally can level the playing field. And that's not to say that the playing field always needs to be leveled, but it can just kind of make life a little bit easier. Or when you're in a flare and you feel like total crap, to be like, you know what, other people have their stuff going on too. Like you know, when you get into that whole like, woe is me, this freaking blows, it's never ending, you know that there's people out there dealing with stuff that they think is equally, if not more impactful, painful, worse, all of that stuff. And so it's not a competition as to what's more painful, what's more impactful, but you know, yeah, it's that, you know, common ground that everyone goes through something and everyone's living with something. It makes you feel a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah, we are not alone, and
No.
there are different gradients. Like you said, everything is relative, right? Like my pain to someone else might not be a big pain, but I'm still experiencing pain, and it is still bringing me a relative level of anguish. Uh, People could argue with me on this, and I still don't even know if I have some super firm opinions, but generally speaking, I like to think that it's all relative. I think there are just certain things that are outside of some, like a realm of someone's possibility, like, you know, some of the worst things in the world, like losing a child or being homeless, or like, I don't know, some really severe things. But that aside, everyone really has their own relative world of pain and happiness. I don't know how I learned this. I'm assuming from my parents, maybe it was innate, but I've actually done a very good job in my life of not comparing myself to others. I've done many other bad things, but that is not one of them.
That's
and
great.
I think maybe some of it is that maybe I was just shown at an early age that I did admire someone or think someone had, you know, great style or was beautiful, or I don't know, the big house. No, I don't know. And then I would see something else about their life that I was like, ooh, I don't want that. I don't envy you. So yeah, I never really envy people. I might look at them and say, I like what you got or have accomplished, and I'll see if I can make something relative to my life like that happen. But it just goes to show that you never know what is behind closed doors, you could say, whether that's the closed doors of their mind or the closed doors of their actual home. Although I will say this, I always said that I would never change bodies with another person, because there was always at least like one thing that I'd find that I loved about myself. Not saying I have the best of anything body wise, but you know, something I like about my body.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, Blake Lively is pretty perfect looking.
I know, she is. Yes.
I might want that, but
Maybe, you know, I'm sure she's got something too.
oh yeah, she's definitely got stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, she's amazing.
So I think, you know, there's always like there's a million things I want to talk to you about, but we do have to wrap up. But since you were so fabulous in answering a lot of my questions behind the scenes, I'd love to go through some of the rapid fire Tim Ferriss credited questions.
Okay.
And
yes.
Yeah, I love his questions. I've now started asking them at the end because they're a little random, but I find them to be very useful. Like people find some value in them. And they're always just fun to ask people because they seem like a little out of the blue and they give you a bit more context to the person that you're talking to. Anyway, I digress. So first, what is the book or books that you've gifted the most, or at least what are the ones that have impacted your life the most?
A lot of Cloe Wade's.
Cloe Wade.
Yeah.
What's an example? I don't think I know any.
Her. Oh gosh, I've been in the process of moving, so I don't have one around. Like the where. Oh gosh, I'm totally blanking. Where do I begin? Where to start? Those ones I have really enjoyed. I like little quick reads for people that just kind of like get your mind thinking but aren't just these kind of like novels that you have to sit and read.
And what about a purchase of $100 or less that has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or recent memory?
Fuzzy socks.
Fuzzy socks.
Were kind of like a comfort whenever I would go in for like a medical procedure, and then I've been obsessed with them ever since. And I recently got a new pack off of Amazon, and I just feel very posh and extravagant when I put them on.
Look at my feet.
Yes, they don't have holes, and that's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
You wear like me, yeah, I wear them till they have holes, which is really silly when socks really don't cost that much. I'll tell you, you really appreciate socks when you don't have them. That is definitely something. I don't know who listening does gratitude journaling, which, side note, I highly recommend to everyone, or at least whether it's journaling or just saying it out loud. But that's a gratitude note for the day is I am thankful for socks.
Yeah.
I know it's such a weird thing to say, but like think about when you want socks and don't have them. It's terrible.
Terrible.
Cold
don't
feet.
Put yourself through it.
No, don't do it. I did it. I was in a hospital in Israel, long story short. And they didn't have socks. You know how a lot of hospitals in America have socks they'll give you? They didn't in Israel, and I was miserable. I was having a terrible fibro flare while in the hospital, and I really just was dying for some socks.
Always get those socks, yes.
Fluffy socks. So actually, let's move to, because you talked about some of these in this episode, so that's great. Ooh, what is one of the best or worthwhile investments you've ever made? And I know that we touched upon this a little bit, but it's worth reiterating.
Yeah, investing in myself, hands down. I am a big shopper. I can shop all day long for just about anything, but actually investing in myself, I went big into personal development, all of that kind of stuff in the last few years especially, and it was scary at first making those investments into courses because it was 100% new territory to me, but hands down the best decision I've ever made. Super fulfilling, and I think when you kind of up level and show the universe that you believe in yourself and are ready for more, it kind of it listens to you and provides you some support in that decision and moving forward. So yeah, investing in myself, hands down.
Nice. Well said. What is an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love?
My goodness. I don't even know if I would answer this. I love, it's not very unusual. Did I answer it? I don't know. I love candles. That's not very unusual. Did I answer this?
You said vacuum.
Oh, yes. I do love to vacuum, which is so weird. And I know, thank you for reminding me, especially with chronic illness, like that's very weird. Like people hate household chores, but I do love to vacuum. I love to clean. Like I said, recovering perfectionist, all that stuff. Yeah, I know I put in there that when my college house was robbed, and they stole everything. It was awful.
Mhm.
They stole our vacuum, and I was so upset. That was the first thing I replaced was the
Well, if you had a Dyson, those are pretty pricey too.
I did. It was my parents' old Dyson, but it was still very nice, and that was a big upset. That was the big loss for me for sure.
These damn burglars stealing vacuums.
I know.
How heartless.
I
How could
know.
they do that?
Yes.
And when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, or you've lost focus temporarily, what do you do? Like, what do you ask yourself?
Oh yeah. I usually ask myself a lot of questions, but do these thoughts serve me, or what's the worst that can happen? Because I think if you actually bring your thoughts back into reality, the reality is usually not as bad as your brain can make it. I think my brain, I would be a extremely good writer for like Law and Order or some Netflix crime show or some insane thing like that, because my brain can spiral sometimes. But if you actually bring it back into reality and ground it in truth, 9 times out of 10, it's not as bad as you think it is. So kind of being that own little mental check for myself is key.
Mental checks. Haven't
Yes.
always useful to have those tools in your tool shed.
For sure, yeah. Keep myself in line.
Well, this has been just I don't know how long it's been, actually. Over an hour, I think, of just some really beautiful, deep conversation. Thank you for being that open book that you promised you would be, and actually not only living your lessons, but bestowing them upon the individuals and the masses. You're doing really tremendous work. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for being on today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Human Care Podcast, part of the Invisible Not Broken podcast network. If you haven't already, please take the next 30 seconds to do these 3 things. Hit our subscribe button, leave feedback with a review, and share this episode with a loved one. Don't forget to check out our official Invisible Not Broken Network Facebook group. Please join us in our community conversations where you can ask questions, connect with fellow invisible illness peers, and make suggestions for the podcast. Visit facebook.com/groups/invisiblenotbroken. And this link will, of course, be in the show notes. Also, if you ever want to submit a question or suggestion directly, feel free to send an email to chronicillnesspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for tuning in and being part of our mission to transform healthcare into human care.